With its fragmented narrative and experiential storytelling, 2011's Dark Souls is a favorite subject for internet speculation and hobbyist lore foragers. But what if we could trace this unique approach to narrative to one subject? Even better, what if Dark Souls gave it a shout-out in-game? I'm John Learned, and this is an annotated footnote. 2011's Dark Souls, published by From Software, is certainly a game with plenty of interesting tidbits under the surface. Referencing everything from contemporary comic books to ancient religion, director Hidetaka Miyazaki and his writers have proven themselves adept at burying fascinating pieces of both myth and story just outside of the player's reach, making even the basic plot of the game a treasure hunt for fans and armchair video game folklorists. One of the best examples of this is Xanthous King Jeremiah, a sort of sub-boss found in one of the game's optional areas, the painted world of Ariamis. For a character with no dialogue that only appears hidden within something hidden, Jeremiah contains multitudes, and is a testament to the Souls game's world building and From Software's skill as storytellers. As a character, we can glean much from just simple combat interactions to decipher a fascinating, if only implied, bit of story implications. As a piece of fiction, though, he's a reference to literary works that inform how Miyazaki and his team craft the stories they tell. Without going way down the rabbit hole, it's theorized by some of the great Dark Souls scholars like Hawkmoor and Vadi that Jeremiah is the exiled king of a ruined city called Izalith. In its prime, Izalith was the birthplace of fire magic called pyromancy, but in its decay it is now the birthplace of demons that scour the world of Lordran. Depending on how deep you want to get into this and what you want to believe, he was on his way to turning into a demon himself before cheating on his queen, and here he is hiding in a magical painting. In true series fashion, we can glean much from the weapons, spells, and armor he wears to make some conclusions about who he was before we find him invading the player's game. The outfit, though, is significant for other reasons. First is the headpiece. Bizarre by itself, it bears a striking resemblance to the monk's head collar, an item found in FromSoft's previous game and direct antecedent to Dark Souls, 2009's Demon Souls. In that game, the final boss of the area known as the Tower of Latria is the Old Monk, whom doesn't actually fight you in the game. Upon entering the boss room, another player from the Demon Souls online servers is pulled into your game and adorned with this bizarre head wrapping, and this can also be obtained by players open to PvP in the Tower of Latria. The flavor text for the 4 archstones used to enter this location tell a very familiar story. Latria, a queendom, had banished their king to unknown places and for unknown reasons, but perhaps due to lustful tendencies by their male monarch, according to one of the nobles locked in a cell. He returned in vengeance and subjugated the land by creating his own demons to rule it, bound in a yellow garb that possessed him and drove him insane. Jeremiah is something of a direct reference to this character. Though Dark Souls is not officially a sequel to Demon Souls, Miyazaki and team often iterate on past ideas, so the Xanthous King is commonly seen as a nod to the previous game. Here's where things get both religious and literary. Starting with the name, Jeremiah was a major prophet found in both the Hebrew Bible and Old Testament of the Christian Bible, where he penned 3 books along with his scribe, Baruch ben Neriah. Beginning as a preaching prophet, Jeremiah is known for foretelling the destruction of Jerusalem due to Israel's turn away from God. The worship of pagan deities such as Baal and Moloch angered Yahweh to the point of vengeful recourse. He was persecuted and imprisoned for his teachings. As Dark Souls fan lore speculates a significant belief that the demons of Izalith were at one point at war with other gods in the game's antiquity, it's possible that the Xanthous Jeremiah was trying to warn Izalith and its queen of the impending conflict, which would be perhaps another reason for exile. In the years since Demon Souls released, though, fans have often considered the Old Monk to be a reference to the Yellow King, a classic literary work of supernatural and psychological horror by Robert W. Chambers. A book of short stories first published in 1895, the first 4 stories revolve around a sort of forbidden stage play, also titled The King in Yellow. Not unlike Japanese horror film Ringu, characters that would read the King in Yellow play were often driven insane, having learned some terrible secret about, well, something. Chambers is intentionally vague about who this Yellow King is and what the characters in the book realize when reading the fictional play, not unlike the oblique storytelling techniques that Miyazaki and company employ for the Souls games. The first of these short stories, The Repairer of Reputations, also mentions something called the Yellow Sign, which is a sort of rune or glyph that, when seen, will possess the bearer by this malevolent Yellow King or his heirs. Though the entirety of the, quote, actual fictional stage play isn't printed in the book, the snippets that do exist suggest the Yellow King to be a sort of supernatural or extra-dimensional force. This work was something of a profound influence on writer H.P. Lovecraft when building his Cthulhu mythos. In fact, the King in Yellow was also assumed into the Cthulhu mythos over time, along with the Yellow Sign. As Lovecraft was certainly an influence on Miyazaki and From Software given the direction their games went with in 2015's Bloodborne, it's fair to assume that they were also more than familiar with the King in Yellow. Elements of the Souls games such as evil elder gods, a dark sign, and characters descending into madness are common motifs. Jeremiah here is a reference to this. The word Xanthous, after all, is a word of Greek origin meaning, you guessed it, yellow. Jeremiah as a prophet is certainly influential over the course of many major world religions. Held in esteem in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, his writing has been revered for thousands of years. To connect him to the Jeremiah exiled in the Painted World, though, takes some deep theorizing into Dark Souls world lore. So while it's fun to speculate and try to put the pieces together, this reference, in true Dark Souls fashion, is not overt. Chambers' King in Yellow, though, is a Xanthous evil that has subtly, though significantly influenced horror fiction for a century. With a puzzle-like structure that's never fully explained and an otherworldly dread that shaped horror fiction tone, it's become a significant touchstone for both video game narratives and cinematic True Detectives. Peeling the layers of this character references religion, literature, as well as the loose game series past. Not bad for a guy that never even speaks.